After the win, my life looked exactly the same. I stayed in my small house, drove the same old car, and kept my daily routine. No one in town had any idea that my life had changed overnight. I chose to keep the secret because money can change people, and I didn't want my life to turn into something complicated. Almost 2 years passed like that. Then one day, something unexpected happened. My son Bren Boss, who had not spoken to me for 22 months, suddenly called. His voice sounded warm, almost caring. He said he missed me and wanted to visit. When he arrived, he hugged me like he hadn't in years. For a moment, I believed he had come back because he truly wanted his mother again. I tried to enjoy the moment. I told myself that maybe time had changed him. Maybe he realized family mattered more than anything else. But a few days later, everything changed. One evening I was walking toward the kitchen when I heard Bren talking quietly on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen, but his words made me stop in the hallway. He was laughing. Then he said something that made my heart drop. He told the person on the phone that I was getting weaker and probably wouldn't live much longer. He talked about the house and the money he believed he would inherit. He even mentioned plans to sell everything after I was gone. In that moment, I understood the truth. My son hadn't come back because he loved me. He came back because he thought I was close to dying, and he was already planning what to do with everything I owned. My name is Alara Quinn, and this is the story of how my own son tried to take advantage of me, and how I made sure his plan failed completely. Before any sudden fortune entered her life, Alara Quinn followed a simple routine in a calm Midwestern community where most people knew each other. Her days were quiet, steady, and often lonely. Years earlier, tragedy struck when her husband died unexpectedly, leaving her to carry every responsibility on her own. Raising a child without a partner was never easy, but Alara refused to complain. Her son, Bren Boss, became the center of her world. Every choice she made focused on giving him a future better than the one she had known growing up. To keep everything running, Alara accepted a demanding position at a local medical clinic. Her shift started late in the evening and ended early in the morning. While the town slept, she sat behind the front desk answering calls, greeting patients, and handling paperwork. The hours were exhausting, yet she pushed through every night because the paycheck meant tuition, books, and opportunities for Bren. As Bren grew older, Alara felt proud watching him prepare for college. She believed education would open doors that had always been closed for her. When he finally left for school, she felt both nervous and hopeful, imagining the successful life waiting ahead of him. However, things slowly began to change. During his time at college, Bren started acting differently. His phone calls became shorter and less frequent. When he did visit, his attitude felt colder than before. He complained about the small house he grew up in and often hinted that she should have achieved more in life. At first, Alara believed the pressure of school might be causing his frustration. She tried to stay patient and supportive, hoping the distance between them would fade. Instead, the gap grew wider. Eventually, a serious argument erupted between them during one visit home. Bren spoke harshly about money, blaming her for not building a better life. He said she had wasted her potential and held him back. Those words cut deeply. Soon after that fight, Bren packed his belongings, left town, and disappeared from her daily life. From that moment on, there was complete silence between them for the next 22 months. One ordinary evening, Alara Quinn stopped by a small corner store after her long shift. On a sudden impulse, she picked up a lottery ticket, barely thinking about it. It felt like nothing more than a tiny escape from the endless routine of her life. A few days later, she held the winning ticket in her hands. At first, disbelief froze her. She double-checked, triple-checked, and still couldn't believe it. The numbers matched perfectly. $13 million. It was more money than she could ever imagine having. Her first instinct wasn't joy, it was caution. She thought about the people who had only seen her struggle, the acquaintances who might suddenly treat her differently, and even the distant relatives she barely knew. She knew money could bring envy, greed, and false intentions. Instead of shouting her good fortune to the world, she decided to remain quiet. Every day continued as if nothing had changed. She still drove her reliable old car, prepared simple meals in her modest kitchen, and walked the same quiet streets she had always known. To protect her winnings, she reached out to Cade Mercer, a trusted lawyer her late husband had once relied on. Cade helped her create a secure trust that would keep the funds completely private. With his guidance, every detail was arranged so that no one could access the money without her knowledge. Life went on outwardly unchanged. She continued working her usual hours, greeting the same patients at the clinic, and keeping her home the way she liked it. The lottery had brought her freedom, but she chose to let it remain a silent secret. Even her closest neighbors and friends remained unaware. Only she and Cade knew that her life had been quietly transformed. The world saw the same Alara Quinn they always had, a humble, hard-working woman, but beneath the surface, everything had shifted. She carried the secret with her like a quiet shield, knowing that one day, it might protect her from more than just curiosity, it could protect her from betrayal too. Nearly 2 years had passed in quiet solitude when Alara's phone rang unexpectedly. On the other end was Bren, her son, speaking in a tone she hadn't heard in months, soft, familiar, almost caring. He said he wanted to make things right and spend some time together, as if he had finally realized how much he had missed her. A few days later, he arrived at her doorstep. The moment he stepped inside, he embraced her with a hug that lingered longer than any he had given before. There was a warmth in his gesture, but also a strange tension she couldn't ignore. Bren immediately began offering help around the house. He insisted on fixing broken shelves, tightening loose door handles, and even preparing meals she had always cooked herself. "You need to take it easy," he said repeatedly, as if he knew exactly what to say to make her feel relieved. Alara felt a mix of emotions. Her heart longed to believe that he had changed, that he had finally matured and wanted a genuine connection. She watched him move around the kitchen, arranging groceries and cleaning counters, and part of her wanted to trust him completely. Yet, deep down, a subtle unease settled in her chest. There was something in the way he spoke, in the careful timing of his smiles and gestures, that felt almost rehearsed, as if he had practiced being the perfect son for some unseen purpose. Still, she stayed quiet, observing, waiting for the natural flow of time to reveal the truth. She let him think she was accepting his attention wholeheartedly, even as a quiet caution lingered behind her calm exterior. For the first time in months, the house felt alive again, but Alara couldn't shake the feeling that the energy filling it wasn't entirely genuine. Something was hidden beneath his words and actions, and she sensed that soon. The real reason for his return would become impossible to ignore. One quiet evening, Alara was heading to the kitchen when she paused at the sound of Bren's voice coming from the living room. He was speaking in hushed tones on the phone, and something in the cadence of his words made her freeze mid-step. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the words she heard made her heart stop. Bren was speaking to someone named Kara Slate, and the conversation was not about family or catching up. "Yeah, she's getting weaker, won't be around much longer," he said casually, almost smiling as he spoke. "Once she's gone, the house and insurance should be mine." Alara felt her stomach twist. Her hands trembled, and the air in her lungs seemed to vanish. This was a side of her son she had never imagined, cold, calculating, and already counting on her absence. Then came a laugh, low and cruel, that made her blood run cold. "If everything goes right, we can sell the place and split the money," he added, as if discussing a business deal rather than his own mother's life. Every word cut deeper than she could have expected. Bren had returned not to reconnect, not to make amends, but because he thought she was fading away, and he had already imagined the life he would claim after she was gone. In that moment, the image of her son, the boy she had raised, the one she had worried over countless nights, shifted completely. The warmth she had hoped for disappeared, replaced by betrayal and disbelief. Alara remained still, silent, and controlled her emotions carefully. She needed time to process the truth, to understand the depth of his plan. The child she had loved had become someone she barely recognized. That night, the quiet house no longer felt safe. Every creak, every shadow seemed to remind her of the secret greed she had just uncovered. Bren wasn't here for her. He was here for something far darker. As the night settled, Alara pieced together the reality she had been avoiding. Bren hadn't returned out of love or guilt. He had learned through whispers that she had been hospitalized months before, and he jumped to the conclusion that her health was fragile. In his mind, it was only a matter of time before all her belongings, her home, her possessions, even the money he thought she had, would belong to him. Every word he had spoken to Kara Slate now made sense. His warmth, his attentiveness, even the exaggerated concern, it had all been a strategy to secure what he believed was his future. Alara didn't allow panic or tears to take over. Instead, she drew a steady breath and forced herself to think clearly. She couldn't confront him blindly, she needed a plan that would protect what was rightfully hers and expose his intentions. She reached for her phone and called Kate Mercer, the lawyer she trusted more than anyone. Kate had helped her keep her finances completely private and manage the lottery winnings securely. Now, he would help her take the next step. Together, they began to quietly organize a strategy. Every detail had to be precise, legal documents, trusts, and contingencies carefully arranged so that Bren's assumptions would crumble without a single chance for him to intervene. Alara stayed awake most of the night, reviewing every step, considering every possible move he might make. Her mind was sharp, focused on ensuring that his betrayal would not succeed. For the first time since Bren had returned, she felt a sense of control. She wasn't powerless, and she wasn't vulnerable. She had the means, the knowledge, and the support to protect herself, and to make sure that the truth of his intentions would be revealed in the most decisive way possible. By the time dawn arrived, Alara was ready. The quiet house no longer felt threatening, it was a place where she could take charge, and where Bren's plan would ultimately meet its match. For the following weeks, Alara carefully acted exactly how Bren thought she would. She moved slowly, spoke softly, and let him see her as fragile and worn down by life. Every gesture, every sigh, was calculated to reinforce the image he had in his mind. She spoke casually about getting things in order, dropping hints about her belongings and finances without giving specifics. Bren's eyes lit up every time she mentioned arrangements, and he began hovering, asking more questions, trying to learn every detail he could. He smiled at her concern, thinking she was unaware of his intentions. What he didn't realize was that every move he admired was part of her plan. She had quietly updated her legal documents and adjusted her estate so that nothing would end up in his hands. The house, her modest possessions, and the enormous lottery trust had been secured in ways he could never guess. Kate Mercer had prepared everything with precision. Each document, each clause, was timed to reveal the truth at the perfect moment. Bren would think he was walking toward a reward, but in reality, he was stepping into the trap she had carefully laid. Alara felt a strange mix of calm and satisfaction. While he schemed and smiled, she held all the control. Every question he asked, every glance he gave, only confirmed that he was falling right into the plan she and Kate had set in motion. Day by day, she maintained the act. Her demeanor, her words, her hesitations, all were rehearsed to perfection. She let Bren grow bolder, convinced of his coming victory, while the real power remained firmly in her hands. By the time the crucial moment arrived, Alara knew Bren would have no idea what was waiting for him. He believed he had outsmarted her, but the reality would shock him completely. Her patience, strategy, and careful preparation had created a situation where his own ambition would lead him straight to defeat. A month later, Alara asked Bren to meet her at Kate Mercer's office, under the pretense of discussing her final arrangements. Bren arrived confident, a smug smile on his face, convinced he was about to claim everything he had imagined. He leaned back in the chair, scanning the room, already thinking about the house, the bank accounts, and the possessions he believed would soon be his. Alara stayed calm, letting him enjoy the illusion of control for a few moments longer. Then Kate Mercer began speaking, his tone measured and deliberate. He explained that Alara's health was strong, and she had no intention of relinquishing control of her assets anytime soon. Her life, though simple in appearance, contained resources and protections that Bren had never suspected. Alara watched as realization slowly dawned on her son. The modest home, the quiet routines, and the ordinary appearance of her life had hidden something extraordinary. Kate disclosed the $13 million lottery trust, detailing how it had been legally secured and shielded from anyone trying to claim it prematurely. Bren's confident posture began to collapse. His face paled as he tried to comprehend the truth. Every plan he had imagined, every scheme he had carefully nurtured, suddenly felt fragile and meaningless. But Cade wasn't finished. He placed another document on the desk, one that revealed the full extent of Alara's preparations. This final disclosure left Bren speechless. The inheritance he had assumed would be his by default was now fully protected and would go exactly where Alara intended. Alara felt a quiet satisfaction as she observed the shock spreading across his face. The boy who had returned with schemes and false concern now confronted the reality that he had underestimated her entirely. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted completely. Bren, who had thought he was in control, discovered he had walked straight into a carefully constructed revelation, one that left no room for excuses or manipulation. Alara spoke with a steady voice, her calmness masking the storm of anger she had felt the night she overheard Bren's plot. She told him she knew everything, that his conversation on the phone had revealed his true intentions. She explained that his betrayal had consequences. Instead of inheriting the wealth he assumed was his, he would only receive a small, conditional trust. It was enough to cover basic education or therapy, if he decided to use it responsibly to rebuild himself. The rest of her fortune, the millions she had quietly secured, would be directed toward scholarships and community projects honoring her late husband's legacy. The funds would help people in ways Bren could never imagine, turning his anticipated gain into meaningful impact elsewhere. Bren opened his mouth to argue, to claim some right to what he thought was his. But every attempt faltered, the law and careful planning left him powerless. The resources he had counted on were now completely out of reach. For the first time, he realized that the person he had seen as vulnerable, tired, and easily manipulated had been far more clever than he had imagined. The child he thought he could outsmart had orchestrated a plan that left him with nothing but disappointment. Alara's composure never wavered. She didn't raise her voice or beg for respect, her actions spoke louder than words. Bren's arrogance, greed, and assumptions had led him into a trap he could not escape. As she watched him process the truth, a sense of quiet triumph settled over her. The revenge wasn't about causing pain, it was about restoring balance and ensuring justice in the only way she could. Bren left the room stunned, stripped of the illusion of entitlement he had carried with him. And Alara finally felt the weight lift from her shoulders, knowing she had turned betrayal into a lesson he would never forget. Bren stormed out of Cade Mercer's office, his face flushed with anger and disbelief. He had expected easy victory, but instead, every plan he had relied on crumbled before him. Alara remained composed throughout the encounter, her expression calm and unshaken. She didn't need to shout or argue, her silence carried the weight of truth. Just before he left, she looked him in the eye and spoke one line that cut deeper than any words of anger could. "I didn't lose a son today. I lost the illusion that I had one." After he disappeared from sight, a quiet sense of clarity settled over her. The confrontation was over, and the outcome had been decided. She realized that the power she had feared losing had always been within her control. In the months that followed, Alara began to direct her fortune in ways that truly mattered. She funded scholarships for students who lacked resources, supported affordable housing projects, and quietly helped families who were struggling to make ends meet. Each effort reminded her that her wealth could create lasting impact far beyond herself. As she walked through neighborhoods where her contributions quietly made life easier, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. For the first time since Brent's departure, she experienced a peace she hadn't known in years, freedom from fear, betrayal, and expectation. The satisfaction she carried wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It wasn't about punishment or humiliation. It was about demonstrating her strength, resilience, and wisdom. Through patience, careful planning, and quiet action, Alara had shown that she was never weak, never powerless, and never someone to be underestimated. Bran had underestimated her, and in doing so, he revealed his own limits. Alara finally understood that true victory came not from retaliation, but from proving her independence, preserving her legacy, and living life on her own terms, stronger and freer than ever before. Do you think I did the right thing by keeping my distance from Bran, or should I have given him another chance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories like this.